Hello everyone, good day to you, wherever you're joining me from. You're welcome to my channel, and I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you. Hello everyone, you're welcome to my channel. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you're watching me from. It's so good to have you. If you have not subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe to my channel. And if you have subscribed, thank you, thank you. If this is your first time of watching, please do subscribe, like, share, and click the notification button so that when next we're on, you'll be one of the first people to be notified. Thank you so much for joining me today. This is Hezbo's View or Word for Word Talk. It depends on where you're watching it from. This is to do with Prince Harry. The court case, I've actually put some video out there. This court case has been on now, and it's actually rounded up a couple of days ago. And like, you know, anyone would say, oh, why did he have to go to court? Why does he have to do that? Why does he have to do that? He just felt he need to do something for himself, what he believes in. Mind you, no royal family have been in the witness stand on that kind of level since 1891. That's that far, about 130 or thereabout years ago. He's broken the record. Why? Because he has something that he wants to point everyone to, that he feels is wrong, that is not right, the way he was treated by the UK tabloids. And he has fought for this, and he's ready to fight. It's one of his life mission to see reformation in the tabloids, industry. He talked about, they portray him as a playboy when he was much younger, when he was, and somebody taking drugs. Some of the things that they made him look like, to the point where if he gets to a place where his mates are, he's already thinking, what are they thinking of me? That can really mess with a young man, somebody that is just, a young person. In secondary school, that's going to be difficult for that person. Knowing that he's already a famous person because of the family he was born into. Then the fact that they put him in papers just to sell, some of them were just for selling, and not caring about how he feels, what the effect it will have on this child. So he felt it really damaged his life. He made him to be very afraid, or paranoid because of what is, because of what they have made him look like on paper, news, just name it, and knowing that he could have stayed at home, he could have stayed in the US and not bother to go to the UK and take the witness stand, let the lawyers sort it out. Lawyers to lawyers, or lawyers to whoever else. One of the lady that was that actually came to take the stand from the defendant, which is the Mirror, she was ordered by the judge to come. None of them that actually went this far to get information, to get people to get information. She was one of those who got people to get information. People were paying private investigators. None of them came to take the stand. Why? Perhaps because they know what they did was wrong. And if they understand, they will have to answer all the questions that the lawyer put to them. And they didn't want to do that. And they might say things that they were not supposed to say that could affect the case for the Mirror, So they didn't come. The only one that came was ordered by the judge to be there. you know, and she pays so much money. I'm not going to go into it. You're going to listen to this video yourself and be able to make your own conclusion, you know. Like some people took a payout, like his brother in one of that case, not to do with this, but took a payout because what they hacked, they took information wrongly, and they pay him, and they pay some other people, you know. They pay so much money, you know, not wanting to come to court because they hacked people's phone or got the information they got illegally. So they had to pay the people to settle. But Harry said, no, I'm not settling for this. I personally think because his mom died because of paparazzi, and some of the things the man went through was also through this tabloids, that he just said, no, they took what was best for me. They took something that was precious to him, and he was going to fight as much as he can. Yeah. He actually called Piers Morgan on this particular case, and they talk about him, how he betrayed his mom. He said he attacked him, and that he has been attacking him and his wife because of what has happened between Piers Morgan and his mom, Princess Di. Yeah. So because some of the things they hacked her phone, and some of the things that they discussed, how he knew about it, all of that, you know, and that's really ridiculous. It's ridiculous, and from that time, he just decided, no, I don't like this man. He has hurt my mom badly. You know, some of the things that the mom, because Piers Morgan then was the editor of the Mirror this time. I think that was between 1995 to 2004. You know, within that period, he was the editor, you know, so he got so many information, you know, that affected his mom. So, and also you see why, like Piers Morgan said, he got to know Meghan. They were friends on the social media. One of the video I saw, was it some time ago, and Meghan told him he was coming to London. He was very happy. I mean, they decided to meet, and we were to meet at the pub. She came in, you know, very elegantly. Everybody turned their head when they saw her, and then he left him. And that was the night or so he met Harry. And after that, he never, ever communicated with him ever again. You won't blame her. Like now, I'm thinking, okay, this is the reason why. You know, if Harry that is going out, when you say, listen, this guy got information about my mom, put it on the tabloid, you know, this is what he has done to his own life and all of that stuff. Stay away. She will, because she loves him. She will do so, you know. And now I see the reason why Meghan just cut off completely, because she didn't want stories to be discussing, and you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? So, oh my word, that even in the court case, they said at a point, Harry actually looked directly to the judge and make his statement, which is not normally done, they said, you know, but he was able to do that just to get the judge attention, you know. Prince Harry is an outspoken person. He doesn't want to just, you know, bottle everything in and just leave it there and just be living, you know, on like, you know, some of the royal family or the royal family, the institution really. But he is not willing to do that. He's not willing to do that at all. He wants to speak what he wants to say. Yeah. So you can't blame him for it. Nobody can blame him for that, because everyone, we're all not all the same. So people say, well, why don't you just shut it? You've written the book, The Spare, you've done your documentary on Netflix. It's enough. Stop and just let it go. Move on. Some of these people have never experienced what he's experienced all his life. Never. So you can't just ask him to move on when you don't know everything about this case. There are a lot they're not saying. A lot they're not saying. which is good. But there's a lot they're not saying, well, I don't know. I say which is good. Well, I don't know. But there are a lot they're not saying for their own reasons or for the family reason, to protect their family and all of that. There are a lot they're not saying, you know? So you have to really think about it twice. I say, okay, he's not saying a lot. He's just pursuing something he feels is necessary to pursue, especially because of the death of his mother. And the way tabloid portray his mother, the way they hacked her phone and got information, whatever way, just to put it out there. And some of them, she said her mother his mom has to apologize to, I think it was Barrymore, about 3 times or so, just because he felt betrayed. What was told her was on the paper. She didn't know how it got there, you know, all of that. So you can't say just shut it. Until you sit on that seat, don't say so. Don't say so. That's my own opinion. Let him do what he wants to do. He wants to pursue. He wants to. That's how people get situation change in all nations, all people, even in the family. Somebody have to stand up and say, no, we can't carry on like this. This is the way we should go now, because this is not helping the company or the firm or the family or the whatever. So we're going different direction. Somebody have to stand up for that. And I believe he did. And that's what he's doing. Anyway, I don't want to take your time so much, you know, in discussing this. With this going on, right? King Charles is, I think it's in Tanzania. They said he's in Tanzania. The last time Harry went to UK to one of the court cases just to start before the date was fixed and all of that, he was somewhere in Europe as well. So it's not, well, maybe it's a coincidence. These 2 times he hasn't been in town, so that because he also helped him if he has to go and do some of the charity work. Yeah, somebody is going to ask him, what about your son here? What about Prince Harry? You know, he doesn't want to say what he doesn't want to say. You know, he doesn't want to say the wrong thing, perhaps. Anyway, it could just be a coincidence. You know what I mean? Oh my word. My own here. I hope that he would be okay. That he will be really okay. You know, he'll be okay, because at the end of it, it's his life. You know, it's his life and that of his family, and he wants to clear what he wants to clear. Thank you so much for listening to me, and I'm going to put on the video where they actually had a discussion on this particular case, you know, where this last day of the court hearing, you hear a lot that came out. You hear how they analyze it and everything. At the other end, we'll talk about it. Thank you. Let me know what you think after listening. What's your thoughts? What's your own? If it was you, what will you do? What will you do? Would you have gone this far? Thank you. Talk to you on the other side.
Love interests, drug taking and being chased by the paparazzi were the focus of the questioning on day 2. There are no cameras and no recordings allowed in court, but we'll bring you the highlights of the evidence in a reconstruction played by an actor. This is Harry in Court, a Sky News special.
Prince Harry is due to take to the witness stand for a second day.
He wants to expose wrongdoing and he wants to hold those responsible accountable.
The offence surrounding his mother's death presents the media,
Bringing damages claims against the Mirror Group. We've heard how alleged hacking engulfed his whole life.
Harry's court papers make huge allegations.
This is Prince Harry versus the papers, round 3.
Hello there, good evening, I'm Jonathan Samuels, and this week Prince Harry has been questioned for nearly 8 hours by lawyers. History was made when the Duke of Sussex took to the witness box, the first senior royal to do so since the 19th century. Harry is accusing Mirror Group newspapers, the proprietor and publisher of the Daily Mirror, the Sunday Mirror and the Sunday People, of unlawful information gathering between 1991 and 2011, which his legal team says resulted reflected in a number of articles being published. Arriving once again to a media frenzy outside of court, ultimately it's the Prince who has to prove his case. But has he done enough to convince the judge? We'll bring you what was said in court, played by an actor. Throughout this programme, we'll be getting the thoughts from our expert panel, Persephone Bridgman-Baker, media lawyer and partner at Carter Ruck, and Paul Connew, former editor of the Sunday Mirror and deputy editor of the Daily Mirror. Great to see you both again. We will chat in a moment. First of all, though, let's take a look at what was said in court. The second day of the Prince's cross-examination began with a look at articles published during Harry's time in the armed forces. Now, this piece from May 2005, it was published in the People newspaper, claimed cadets at the Sandhurst Military Academy were furious with Harry after he was let off daily exercise on account of an injured knee.
Yes, it is entirely accurate. That's in reference to while I was at Sandhurst and the distrust I ended up having while I was at Sandhurst.
The barrister then says, but in any event, the injury to your knee was public knowledge and you discussed it publicly.
Yes.
Then Andrew Green raised some other articles about Prince Harry's knee injury before saying a senior officer had raised the issue that other cadets might feel you were getting preferential treatment.
Yes.
Do you accept there is public interest in reporting preferential treatment?
No, I don't.
Showing the courtroom another article, this time about Harry's drug taking, Mr. Green follows up with, I think you were suggesting it was not a public interest story.
I didn't say that. I said there was a difference between public interest and what interests the public. Now, I don't believe it affects the well-being of society.
The lawyer for the newspaper group pushes the Prince to define what is in the public interest, asking what would be a public interest story about you which would be legitimate to publish.
I'm not entirely sure other than speculating.
Could you speculate for a moment? What would be a public interest story in your view?
A life-threatening injury.
A life-threatening injury, but short of that?
I'm sure there are others, but...
Going back to the Sandhurst article, the barrister suggests it was inevitable that other cadets would pay attention to how the Duke was being treated. Prince Harry replied with, yes, the barrister adding, and other cadets would pay attention to how you were being treated at Sandhurst.
Yes, and I could save a lot of time by talking more about the article itself, as opposed to just the knee injury.
Well, to that, Andrew Green responds with, could I ask the questions and then perhaps you, before the judge interjects, saying, you put your questions, Mr. Green, and then Prince Harry will be given the opportunity to answer them.
My lord.
Andrew Green continues, and if someone thought you were getting unfair preferential treatment, they might well ask about it and disclose it to the media.
It would be if those gruelling marches were happening at that period of time, yes.
So, in that exchange, they referred to the witness statement, which we can show you now. It reads, I was not going around freely discussing any medical issues or injuries that I had. I was almost conditioned to feel guarded at this point in my life, worrying I couldn't trust anyone for fear that it would end up splashed across the tabloids. Well, let's speak to Persephone and Paul. Before we get into all of that, there's a lot to discuss. Persephone, you were in court again today. What was the atmosphere like and how was Harry?
So we had reporters outside from all over the world today, which is quite astonishing, quite a relatively small space outside the Rolls building. And the atmosphere in court today was different from yesterday. I think it was quite clear that yesterday's rigorous questioning by the Mirror's barrister had taken its toll on Harry today. And I mean, you know, you're tired, you've had to go away and not talk to anybody about your evidence. It's quite a stressful situation to be held overnight when you're a witness. Yeah. And that really showed this morning.
Yeah, there was a little bit there, wasn't there, where the judge had to step in at one stage about the questioning. Paul, Harry said when it comes to stories about the royals, only a life-threatening injury makes the grade. I mean, what would you make of that?
Yes, I think, it's one of the great dilemmas, of course, of, what is the public interest as opposed to the what interests the public. And Harry's obviously aware of that. But I think to say a life-threatening injury is the only thing, of course, is, he could have said, well, if I was involved in some disciplinary for misconduct or whatever as an example. But I think he's arguing that virtually everything should be private unless it's, on a massive scale, like his fallen over and suffered a brain injury.
And yet, when you read his book, there's plenty more stories in it than life-threatening injuries, aren't there?
Exactly. I mean, the invading his own privacy argument, of course, is there for critics.
The Piers Morgan defence, yeah. Persephone, when it comes to the public interest, is that actually relevant in this case?
It is, although it's been of limited priority, really, because the Mirror's main defence is that the unlawful information gathering didn't take place, so we don't really get to a public interest argument, although it has sprung up in places over the course of the proceedings.
He's clearly got a chip on his shoulder, hasn't he, about so many issues, and we talked a bit about it yesterday. When he goes back to Sandhurst, he's clearly frustrated at the thought that he might have got preferential treatment, that he might have been let off things that his mates were having to do.
I think it's more a case that if he is telling the truth, or his terrible thing, his own truth, it's the fact that he felt that the media would portray it that way, even if the military weren't saying that. I mean, it's part of this. I mean, he used the word paranoia a couple of times today. I think the royal family might be quite relieved in that one sense. He's now saying that his paranoia that it was members of his own family who were leaking to the press. He said he no longer believes that. So whether that's going to lead to any sort of partial rapprochement, who knows? And
I suppose it's all about whether unlawful information gathering was used, or whether it was tip-offs from other squaddies, from members of staff at places like Sandhurst. That's sort of the crux of it, isn't it?
Yes, about whether the information was already in the public domain because it had been published by third-party publishers, or whether or not it came from leaks within the the royal press team, or from some of them in relation to actual interviews that Harry's given himself.
I mean, not involving Prince Harry, but in the past I've known, should we say, sources who are upset or feel maligned or leaking stories from by Sandhurst cadets. So it's not an unknown phenomenon that the paper could have got it from a disgruntled member of the Sandhurst student body.
Harry spoke about some of the information today, saying that at the time when it was published, he thought it must have been through leaks. So clearly, at the time, that's something which they're aware of it happening.
Yeah, they really are. Thank you both for the moment. Coming up, we'll be getting the thoughts of a royal insider who used to work for his father, now King Charles. Now, later in cross-examination, the Duke makes a claim that phone hacking stemmed right across the tabloid news press.
I believe there is phone hacking at an industrial scale across at least 3 of the papers of the time, and that is beyond doubt. And to have a decision against me and any other people who come behind me with their claims, given that Mirror Group newspapers have admitted hacking and they have given out, I believe, over $1 billion in settlements, yes, I would feel some injustice if it wasn't accepted.
Andrew Green, the barrister for the Mirror, then says, I see. So you want to have been phone hacked?
And nobody wants to have been phone hacked, my lord.
Well, one line of attack from the barrister for the Mirror Group newspapers was to question why Prince Harry didn't consider phone hacking years before now. The barrister showed this article, shell-shocked, asking Harry, do you recall talking to the Met Police in relation to this?
No, I don't. It all went through the palace.
And presumably the palace would have handed over your relevant phone records.
Hopefully not my voicemails.
The lawyer clarifies, sorry, not your voicemails.
I would assume. I'm not entirely sure. It was all out of my hands.
Andrew Green references the arrests in 2006 of private investigator Glenn Mulcair and News of the World reporter Clive Goodman for phone hacking. And are you aware that no other journalists were arrested at this time? There were no arrests of any Mirror journalists. Are you aware of that?
Yes.
The barrister adds, presumably from that time on, you and your aides would have been straight off to the police if any information from your voicemail turned up in the papers.
Again, not necessarily. And I very rarely saw any of my phone records because they were managed by the palace.
Andrew Green continues to question Prince Harry, saying you would know what voicemail had been left on your phone and would know if that information would have been picked up, wouldn't you?
No, my lord. At the time, we didn't know it was voicemail hacking. No one did. It seemed suspicious that Clive Goodman wrote the story that he did and that it was connected. No one really knew at the time.
Andrew Green then suggests Prince Harry must have known the articles were as a result of phone hacking after the journalists went to prison.
I believe the understanding within the palace was this was probably a one-off, and I believe it was described as a one-off as well.
Fascinating exchange that, wasn't it, in court earlier today. Persephone, timing is very interesting. It's come up quite a lot, hasn't it, over the last couple of days, because Andrew Green making the point there, we know people being arrested for phone hacking and going to prison, and yet you still didn't suspect you were being phone hacked at that stage.
That's absolutely right. It goes back to this limitation defence point, where you're supposed to bring these sorts of claims in relation to misuse of private information within 6 years under our Limitation Act. And when that's 6 years from the date on which you found out about the incidents taking place, or should have reasonably found out about the incidents taking place. And really it puts both parties at a disadvantage. Yes. We've seen both parties today have difficulties with recollections, difficulties with deleted material and destroyed evidence, and that's part of the reason why those limitation periods exist.
I found it very interesting that the very last thing the judge said to Harry just before he left the witness box was to refer to 4 paragraphs that the judge said hadn't really been discussed that much from his statement, and it was the 4 paragraphs relating, to his voicemail messages disappearing, and not just his, but those of people he was in contact with him, and saying, when did you first realise or become suspicious that something might be happening? And Harry said, when I was 13 at Eton. And the judge didn't really follow through on that, but I was fascinated why he seized on those 4 paragraphs. Oh, the judge also said, "Do you think it continued?" And Harry said, "Yes, I now think it's continued ever since."
Do you think we've seen hard evidence, Persephone, today? I don't feel we saw any yesterday necessarily, but do you think we've seen hard evidence today of unlawful information gathering with any of the articles they've been through?
I don't think it's changed today. I mean, I think we said yesterday that I think that the blagging point is arguably the strongest, the articles where that blagging seems to have been the source of the material. Today, Harry actually said there's hard evidence of an incredible amount of suspiciousness, which I think really sums up his case, actually, that this is just an inferential case based on what they say is an enormous amount of circumstantial material.
Yeah, I mean, as a journalist, not a lawyer, looking at those 33 stories, I think there are maybe 4, at most 5, where I would guess that Harry might have a fighting chance of winning. On the rest, I think it'd be almost impossible for the judge to decide these were the outcome of either phone hacking or blagging. And the ones where I think he's got a fighting chance are mainly blagging rather than phone hacking.
He only needs one, really, doesn't he?
He only needs one to
it's like a penalty shootout, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, Harry would hail one as a major victory, but of course for the Mirror, even one would be a disaster because, and they've got 3 more, of course, to come in this case. They have, I think, between 80 and 100 more in the pipeline. And when the Mirror settled in a blaze of publicity in 2015, the share price was hit badly. So it's not just a question of reputation. It's not just a question of what they may have to pay out should Harry and the others win this case. It's what the impact it could have on the share price. And the little stat I was looking at, my own research, at the time Harry first now claims the hacking began, the Daily Mirror circulation was 2 million. It's now down to less than 400,000, which shows the economic impact.
we're in a really different world, doesn't it? And just finally, Persephone, on that point, do you think the world has moved on and actually the influence of the press isn't as great now as it once was, and that's not helping Harry's argument when it comes to the general public?
I don't know about that. I think that the press still has enormous interest. I think influence. I think it's shaped in a different way now, isn't it? I mean, we consume so much more at high speed online. It's very different from when you see these old hard copy articles. It's a real throwback, isn't it, when you see them in the evidence?
Although I think the influence is, politicians, I think, are slow to realise that the influence is not as great as it was. I was watching on a different channel Andrew Neil this morning, who was basically saying that, Harry really shouldn't be bothered because the papers now matter so little, that he's already won by the decline in circulation.
Yeah, it's a very good point, and perhaps one for a longer debate another time. Thank you both very much for the moment. After the break, we'll bring you Harry's explosive accusations about how phone hacking started at the Mirror and what happened when the Mirror journalist took the stand.
So, what is your take on this? Now that you've listened to all that happened in court and his deposition and the fact that they were trying to bring in the talk about. Okay, so you're still talking about your about his ex-girlfriend, rather, all of that came on, the way he was harassed and the girl was harassed, and the girl like, listen, I can't take this anymore. How he affected the relationship, his heart, and all of that. That especially if you love the person or if you're having fun with that person, all of a sudden because of this intrusion, and they said, no, I can't handle this. What do you think? Do you think like I said earlier, you should have posted it? Let me know on your comments. Thank you so much. I hope you learned something a little bit new about Harry and the case and the UK tabloids, so that you're able to say, okay, here we go. Now I know this is how they roll out here. Thank you so much. God bless you. Bye-bye.